Hi, I'm the OBG. Founded somewhere in the 5th century BC, Buddhism is considered as one of the 5 oldest religions in the world. Its very roots can be found in the east of ancient India in the Kingdom of Magadha at the time, which is today's state of Bihar. More of a spiritual way of life than a binding religion that neither admits nor negates any god, and with basic principles such as compassion, wisdom and acceptance of the self and all living things, Buddhism gained popularity over the last couple of decades, spreading well out of its original Asian boundaries. It's one of the most favoured and widely accepted religions today, consisting of more than 500 million devotees all over the globe. In the late 6th and early 5th century BC, the most influential and dominant religion of the largest part of India was the Vedic religious order, started by a community of nomads some thousands of years earlier, and it was founded in a time before organised towns and cities existed. This religious order was in many ways shaped by the nomadic agricultural societies. However, in the 5th century, Indian people that at that time already resided in urbanised societies began seeking some new views and teachings, some that corresponded better with the emerging and for that time modern lifestyle. India became a fertile ground for numerous new religious and spiritual movements, many of which in an attempt to rebel against the Vedic order and to give some people the new perspectives they needed. Buddhism was one of them. So let me talk a little about the foundations of Buddhism. A man named Siddhartha Gautama is considered as the founder of Buddhism. He walked the earth somewhere in the 5th century BC, with some findings that suggest he was born in 563 BC and died in 483 BC, while others have 480 and 400 as his birth and death years, respectively. As of most of the collected data, many Buddhist books claim, Siddhartha, or the Buddha as the world knows him today, was born into a family of enormous wealth with an influential social status, and there are numerous texts that even relate to them as royalty, and Siddhartha as the prince and next successor to the throne. During his childhood and adolescent years, Siddhartha's parents sheltered him from all the world's sufferings and surrounded him with all the pleasures and beauty they could find. They enabled him with everything they thought a young prince and one of a warrior caste, as some data points to, would need. And with their help and support, he acquired all the knowledge he could. He learned patience and compassion, and he perfected his combat and archery skills, which reportedly even allowed him to win his future wife, named Yasodhara. However, Siddhartha couldn't possibly spend all his entire life without eventually learning about the crueler side of life and the suffering that all people eventually endure in one form or another and of different levels. And when he was 29, whilst on one of his rare chariot rides, Siddhartha first saw an old man, then someone gravely ill, and later on he saw a corpse of a person. After meeting a version of life that wasn't as merciful and kind as he had experienced, and which forced him to realise the inevitable truth that all life eventually ends, Siddhartha met a holy person devoted to asceticism, who was deep into meditation, and as he tried to search for the reason of people's suffering, he witnessed this. These 4 moments that Siddhartha witnessed, that would later become known as the 4 sights or 4 noble truths, changed him forever. So let me explain the 4 noble truths and the Eightfold Path. The first noble truth, life itself is dukkha, suffering. The second noble truth, the penultimate cause of suffering, is longing and desire. The third noble truth, there is an end to the suffering. And the fourth noble truth, the last noble truth, relates to the means whereby suffering can be ended. And this includes the Eightfold Path and the middle way. The Eightfold Paths are portrayed by Dhamma, the 8-spoked wheel, and includes righteousness and views, intention, speech, action, occupation, endeavour, mindfulness and meditation. The ascetic he saw finally inspired him to search deep within himself for the answers and an asylum of the worldly anguish that he had just discovered. He left his home and he surrendered to asceticism as a rigorous, all-inclusive and at some moments agonising religious practice, and after almost 6 years, Siddhartha still hadn't found the enlightenment that he was looking for. He decided that instead of torturing himself through methods of asceticism that didn't work for him, he would meditate in Bodh Gaya in today's Bihar, beneath a sacred fig tree called Ficus religiosa, for as long as it was needed for him to learn his mind's actual power and acquire wisdom to help everyone else. Different stories and different findings and books suggest different numbers of days that he actually spent meditating, with some claiming that he meditated for 6 consecutive days and nights, while others go even further, saying that Siddhartha meditated for almost 50 days and nights in a row before he reached enlightenment and became the awakened one, or the Buddha, at the age of 35. Once he'd reached a state of enlightenment and total bliss, Siddhartha travelled all around India with the intention to share all the knowledge and spiritual wisdom that he'd gained with as many people as he could. And when he interacted with his students to teach them what he had actually discovered personally, he always advised them to test all of his life lessons and to make sure that they were right for them or true for them, instead of blindly following and doing whatever he told them. Even before the Buddha's death, there were many notable differences between his devotees, mainly caused by different locations and teachers, different cultures and languages, and of course, the influence of other religious orders. However, they became much more significant and had a greater impact after his death. This eventually resulted in division and forming different Buddhist schools. While the exact reason for the schism amongst Buddha's followers is uncertain, some texts suggest that numerous disciples of his, originally part of the Shatavirada school, allegedly referred to Buddha as a deity in their teachings. They were banished, after which they formed the Mahasaginka school. The creation of the Mahasaginka school of Buddhism triggered the establishment of many new Buddhist schools, and some link this early Buddhism schism to the creation of the Theravada Buddhism that to this day still exists. So, the spreading and development of Buddhism came next, and most scholars believe that Buddhism gained significance and true momentum and began spreading in the time of the Mauryan Empire with Emperor Ashoka the Great. When he opened up his empire and allowed trade with many other countries, many Buddhists passed through his cities and spread the word of their humble and undogmatic religion. Ashoka himself accepted Buddhism as his religion and became the bridge between his supporters and Buddhism's teachings. Ashoka's dedication to Buddhism and his devoted guidance helped spread Buddhism all across India, but his impact and contribution to the religion is even greater in that he helped Buddhism grow outside India's borders and get embraced in many kingdoms in Asia, such as Thailand, Vietnam and Sri Lanka, to name a few. According to Mahasavma, a chronicle of Buddhism, it was Ashoka's son named Mahinda that converted Sri Lanka's ruler Tissa to Buddhism. Over the following centuries, Buddhism expanded its influence even more and more to reach new continents and to grow globally to the widely accepted spiritual way of life we now know. In the modern era, the religious movement did suffer the consequences of Western colonisation, and who hasn't, of Asian countries and kingdoms and their efforts to repress indigenous peoples' cultures, as well as their social organisations and religions, and to force their own, such as communism, Christianity, capitalism, and to name just a few. However, it did prevail over all pressures, with more than 500 million followers from all corners of the globe today. And while there are numerous Buddhist schools that differ in many ways, there are 3 main branches whose influence is divided into 3 geographical areas in Asia. The first of them is Theravada Buddhism, which is typical for Cambodia, Thailand, Laos, Sri Lanka and Burma. The second is the Mahayana Buddhism, accepted by Korea, Japan, Taiwan, China, Vietnam and Singapore. And finally, the Tibetan Buddhism, typical for Nepal, Tibet, Bhutan, Mongolia, the northern parts of India and some areas of Russia. Buddhism has shown a longevity and still plays a major part in many people's lives up to this very day. I'd suggest at least reading a little bit about it, even if you don't actually intend to follow its teachings, and I think you will be surprised. I'm the OBG. OBG.